So thanks to those of you who are with us here at the top of the hour. We say good afternoon and welcome to the Los Angeles Rams Leading Through Adversity and Driving Competitive Greatness Chalk Talk with the head coach of the Los Angeles Rams, Sean McVay. I'm team broadcaster JB Long, and this afternoon we expect to have over 200 high school coaches joining us throughout the Southland. Veteran head coaches, seasoned positional coaches in Southern California, even first-year coaches. It's really a fantastic subset of the fraternity. And Sean, before I go through my spiel, my rundown of the afternoon, I'm sure you'd like to greet everyone. So why don't I step aside and give you that chance here?
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity. Certainly these times are unprecedented, but I'm glad to be able to visit with a lot of special men. And I think the platform that we have as leaders, as coaches, as mentors is really more powerful than ever. And being able to pour into our players, really just the people that are in our lives is what it's about. And I know that football has provided so many great opportunities for me in my life, but more than anything, it's been the people that I've been exposed to. And I think we all have such a valuable influence in how we can affect our guys in the right way day in and day out. And I'm excited about talking about those things today.
Yeah, we've got about an hour, and for the first few minutes, we'll focus on various elements of Coach McVay's leadership philosophy and coaching journey. But after 3 seasons of working with me, he's had more than enough of my questions. So what we're really looking forward to is opening up the floor to you. And we know you're pumped for this opportunity to personally ask Sean a question about your football program. If you have not already, please take a moment, guest, to use Zoom to rename yourself if necessary. Your first name would be great. And please also include the name of your respective high school. That would help out and be much appreciated. Okay, Sean, let's kick it off. And of course, we have many coaches wondering what the steps are to be an NFL head coach or a coach of any kind in the league and how they can advance their career with their current season. Can you give us an overview of your journey, starting with really what inspired you to get into coaching in the first place?
Yeah. So I've been so fortunate that I've grown up in a football family. And when I got done playing at Miami of Ohio, I knew that I wanted to be able to get into football in some form or fashion. And I wasn't sure if it was the coaching journey or if it was even getting into scouting. And then immediately when the opportunity presented itself to get on with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it's really a result of my grandfather's relationship and legacy that he had established, where I got right on with Coach Gruden basically as an assistant to the quality control coaches right when I finished playing ball. And that's where I don't take for granted how blessed I've been, because my grandfather and Jim Gruden Sr. had worked together when they were with the 49ers. There was a lot of family connections that enabled me to be able to get on with the Bucs right away. So I spent that first year with the Buccaneers. Then we ended up getting let go, and I went and coached in the United Football League, which was an unbelievable experience to be able to immediately say, okay, I'm going to go with the Bucs. You get exposure to so many special coaches, so many special players. Then you immediately get an opportunity in the United Football League to coach the running backs and the tight ends. For Jay Gruden was our offensive coordinator. Jim Haslett was the head coach. A lot of really special coaches there. And then I went to Washington right after that, got on with Mike Shanahan, was working with Kyle Shanahan. Matt LaFleur was on that staff. There's a lot of special coaches. And I spent 7 years in Washington and had so many great experiences, some good, some bad, a lot of really good things that I was able to learn. And then the last 3 years going into my 4th season here. So it's been a whirlwind. I have certainly been an unbelievable beneficiary of being around great men that were willing to pour into me. And I think that's what we've tried to create here from a culture standpoint, is making everybody feel valuable, letting them know that we have their best interests. And in a lot of instances, specific to the coaching staff, we've lost some great coaches that have gotten better opportunities, and we've tried to help promote that. And I think that atmosphere, that competitive environment where guys know, hey, I'm going to come here, I'm going to work hard, but if we continue to do the things that we've done over the last few years, it means opportunities come. And I think everybody wants to have a chance to be able to grow, and that's what we've been able to do here.
On that path you just described, there are a lot of big recognizable names along the way. How did you synthesize all of their philosophies, their schemes, their input into what you might now call your philosophy, your coaching scheme, even as you continue to develop it to this day?
Yeah, I think it's just about those guys' willingness to share and really put their arm around me and help me grow. I've talked a lot about the influence that the Gruden family had on me. John really taught me the foundation of what I know about this game. And what I thought was so beneficial about being around Coach Gruden was he really taught me to see the game through a 22 man perspective, where, hey, it's one thing, you're not just coaching the quarterbacks or the running backs, but let's make sure you understand offensive line play. Let's make sure you understand defensive line play, linebackers, secondary. And if you can have an understanding of what all 22 are being asked to do, that can help you, whether you're an offensive coach attacking defense or a defensive coach trying to apply pressure to an offense. Those are the things that have really been helpful. Then you get a chance to really say, okay, there's a real identity offensively and how we want to operate with the Mike Shanahan system, the marriage of the run and the pass game. So it's been a collaboration of all those guys being able to pour into me, like I said, JB, and then being able to use those experiences that you had with them to then try to create what we've got going here in LA.
Another dozen or so coaches have joined us here as we've gotten started. So welcome those of you to the Leading Through Adversity and Driving Competitive Greatness Chalk Talk with the head coach of the Los Angeles Rams, Sean McVay. I'm your co-host, JB Long. One more question from me, and then we're looking forward to passing the mic to you, the coaches in our audience, so that you can have a direct line to Sean McVay. I'm guessing, Sean, that many in our audience already saw your comments from earlier today about social distancing and football, and they were made in the context of the NFL and HBO announcing, that Hard Knocks is returning to Los Angeles and SoFi Stadium. But for the benefit of our high school coaches who are dealing with the uncertainty of their own seasons, how did you approach this offseason so far with the restrictions that were in place while trying to sustain unity and that positive team culture in the virtual environment?
Yeah, it's really just a day at a time. And I think what has been really beneficial about the restrictions is that you're more still than we've ever probably been. You're more present, but that also has given us an opportunity to connect with our players in ways that typically you're just so rushed to get information, or you're teaching them and you're getting a chance to really ask questions. I've gotten to have a really good relationship with Doc Rivers. And one of the things that he mentioned, he actually came and spoke to our team earlier this offseason and was incredible. But he pointed out to me that he's never had the opportunity to really talk to his players about things outside of basketball. Well, it's been the same thing for us outside of football. And you're really getting a chance to try to understand these guys. And we believe everything starts with building and developing relationships. And I think we've been able to strengthen those connections. I think it's really been beneficial we've put a leadership group in place where it's about 13 guys, and I've gotten to be really close and more connected with them. And it's really 13 men that represent, they're a great reflection of the 90-man roster that we do have. And it's a lot of different guys from different positions, things like that. But it's about connecting, and that's what we try to do every single day.
It's awesome. Thanks for that, Sean. And, coaches, we're now going to invite you to personally ask Coach a question with our audio function here. A few things to know. In order to ask a question, you'll have to raise your hand through the Zoom function raise hand located at the bottom of your screen. So if you're already chomping at the bit, I get it. Go ahead and fire that up right now and get in queue. If you are selected, you're going to receive a request from the host to unmute your microphone and then be prompted to accept. Once you do accept, you'll be able to share your question with Coach. Again, they're all going to be audio only. You can also submit your question in the Q&A box if you'd prefer, but again, we highly recommend that you personally join us, as we would love to hear from you. It would make our afternoon. And the great Jonathan Franklin is behind the scenes teeing this up for us. So thanks to him for his efforts to keep me on track as we try to get to as many of you as we can. All right. I think Saul Jimenez has the honor. He is number one on the list that I have so far. So we'll give Jonathan just a second to get Saul into the conversation. And Todd Butler, why don't we plan on you being on deck? So Saul, go first, and Todd Butler will have you on deck. And let's see if we can start off on a good note.
Like it.
Yes, Coach, can you hear me?
We got you. Yeah.
How you doing? Pleasure to meet you.
Great to meet you.
I'm first-year head coach at Huntington Park High School in Huntington Park. My question was specifically to the power play. and a 50-man front. So I was wondering, a couple coaches and I were talking. I was wondering what you like to do with the backside three technique. So, for example, let's say they give us 2-3 techniques and a true nose guard over the center. What do you, when you pull that guard, what do you do with that backside three technique? Do you have the do you have the tackle go ahead and block that three technique on the backside and leave the end coming in free, or do you have that center going all the way to the three technique? We couldn't settle on making a decision for that play on a 50-man front. What do you think, Coach?
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll have our center kind of quick post the nose, and he'll block back on the three technique. And then we'll also have the backside tackle, jab, and pick. So he's going to come down and lend some presence on the three technique. So basically, you've got an inside and an outside sideboard by that tackle and by the center on the three. And then once he feels like that center has really taken over that block, then he's able to hinge so that you're not truly booking that edge player. So he's a jab and pick technique where he's stepping down to secure the three, and then he's pivoting out to secure that end. But it times up nicely, so you get kind of an inside and an outside sideboard on the three technique with your center and your tackle.
I see what you're saying. Okay, got it, Coach. Thank you.
No problem. You know what? I can actually, let me see if I can pull something. But yeah, go ahead. I'll be able to pull up I'll pull up one of our plays where we've done that, and
okay,
on film you'll see.
Behind the scenes, Sean, we had the over/under at 312. That's the first time you might get out of your seat to demonstrate something. So you hit it right on the nose. Nicely done.
There you go, man.
This is his sweet spot. All right, Todd Butler was promised to us next. Why don't we go ahead and get Todd ready? And Sean, feel free to kind of interrupt and queue up or share your screen if you think you want to.
Okay, perfect.
And in the meantime, I'll just add, Todd, can you hear us? And let's see if we can hear you, and we can go to your question in the meantime.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for setting this up. This is awesome.
Yeah, I love doing it.
You want me to ask my question while you're queuing up the
Go
film?
ahead. Yeah, you go ahead. I'm just trying to get this thing set up right here.
Perfect. Okay, so actually it's a philosophical question anyway. I'm the head coach of St. Pius X, St. Matthias Academy in Downey.
Awesome.
I hope I'm not bringing up a wound with this question. So we had a great season last year. We went 12-0, and unfortunately lost the title game. So that was our first loss of the season. And I'm pretty good with the positive thinking, the mental side of the game, and getting my players' mentality right. But I got to tell you, I would love to hear your thoughts as to how you kind of moved off of your disappointment with the Super Bowl loss and how you did it. I just find myself waking up at night still thinking about playing the what-if game for just that one game. Just any advice you have in terms of moving my mentality and my program's mentality forward from what was ultimately an amazing run, but just didn't win the last one.
Yeah, I think what I would say, specific to being in a similar experience, when you say, all right, let's not take for granted the journey to get to 12-0. There's a lot of things, even though it didn't end the way you wanted to. I think we all have a tendency to have it be a zero-sum game where it's an all or nothing thing. And, I would never say that, hey, we were happy with the way the season ended. But I know for me personally, it was the most rewarding season I've ever been a part of. It was the most successful, even though we didn't win a championship. And what we've tried to do, and what I would say I'm trying to do, Coach, is you just learn from all your experiences, good or bad, but you don't allow it to inhibit your ability to move forward. And I think for us as coaches, especially, if we ask our players to be mentally tough, to be resilient, to be able to bounce back, to be able to continue to move forward and progress, I think we've got to demonstrate those things with our demeanor, with our approach day in and day out. And I just encourage you to really look at the film, say, what can I do to make sure that I don't make some of the same mistakes again? Not necessarily the what if game, but what happens when I'm in this spot again, so that you don't have to have any sort of regrets.
Perfect. Thanks, Coach. I really appreciate that advice.
You got it. All right. So here's really what I'm talking about. And this is a little bit different, but if you really see, there's still kind of a three technique over our left guard, Roger Saffold. So you'll see Sullivan is just going to post back right there. And Whitworth, that's the jab and pick where he's going to step down and kind of secure that B gap, and then he hinges back out. That's what I was talking about. That's easier to kind of see, so you get that inside and outside sideboard on the power play right there.
All right, let's go to our next question from Michael Case. And just as a preview, William Cloak, hope I'm saying that last name correctly. Why don't we plan to have you on deck in case you want to stand by and get ready. So Michael, the floor is yours if you're with us.
Hey, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Loud and clear.
All right. Awesome. From Riverside Poly High School, I'm an assistant coach over there. My question for you, Coach McVay, in Bill Walsh's book, Finding the Winning Edge, he goes into detail about the idea of this idea of true competition, right? It can be summarized as like meeting an opponent of comparable talent or an opponent with better but not dominating talent. How, as a head coach, do you prepare for competition outside of that idea of true competition, right? Outside of the idea of someone who's comparable to you. So getting your guys ready for someone who might be a little bit worse or even better.
I think it's all about establishing a rhythm and a routine. You know, everything that we try to do centers around competition. I think that brings out the best in guys. But, you know, what we try to do that I think naturally gets you to those competitive opportunities where you're ready when the moment comes is you got to establish a process. You've got to have standards with what help with really what guide your operation on a day-to-day basis. And for us, you know, we talk about our process as our daily, our weekly, our hourly rhythm that's focused on daily improvement and daily excellence. And that's kind of what we try to be consistent with. We try to establish and maintain the highest standards with how we practice, how we prepare, and then it ultimately leads to that performance where you're really ready for those competitive opportunities. And, you know, like what with the Chalk Talk being competitive greatness, one of the guys that I am just such a huge fan of is Coach Wooden. You know, that was at the top of his pyramid of success, and he defined competitive greatness being your best when your best is required, and your best is required all the time. And so if we're always striving for that competitive greatness, I think naturally it expresses itself in really everything that you do.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
Got it.
Thanks for being here, Michael. And next up will be William, and Jacob Ochoa is coming up next. So stand by, Jacob, and William, we pass the mic to you.
Great. Nice to meet you, Coach. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Great to meet you.
I coach the freshmen over at Riverside Poly, and I work with quarterbacks as well. And my thought was, if you only had 2 drills for young quarterbacks, what 2 drills would you pick?
Now, that's a great question. I think the first thing is just any of those, you know, movements where naturally in football, you know, it's not a static atmosphere. Naturally, guys are going to get moved. So I think it's when you're taking a drop, just any sort of quick reset to be able to deliver the football, changing your arm angle. So you can't get enough just drops, you know, just the timing and rhythm of whatever offensive, you know, routes that you guys are working. And then I think the other thing is just some of those movement type throws, you know, where you're changing a launch point. I'm a big fan of moving the spot so that you're not always throwing it from a static location. So anytime that you can just incorporate game-like movements while limiting the risk for injury are always going to be the top things. But I would just say, hey, it's drops and then just quick resets. And then it's also being able to just move, whether it's rolling to the left or to the right for your guys.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Coach. I appreciate it. That's awesome.
You're welcome.
All right, Jacob, you'll be coming in here and taking over with our next question. And heads up, Daryl Thomas, we're coming to you after Jacob has his turn. Go ahead, Jacob.
Hey, Coach McVay, thanks for the time. I appreciate you. I'm a new head coach taking over at Glendale High School here in California. It's a program that hasn't had a winning season in quite some time. And I'm wondering what you would focus on to try and change the culture, you know, build pride, discipline, and commitment for you know, not only a school, a city, community that hasn't had much success.
Yeah, well, good luck with that. That's awesome. Congratulations on the head job. I would say that number one, it's about, you know, getting to know your players. Build, you know, everybody talks about culture. We talk about it a lot, but you know, it's really any organization's greatest asset or any team's greatest asset are its people. And it's how strong of a relationship can you really build with your players, with your coaching staffs, and then really having an identity that what do you want your tape to look like? You know, what is it that we feel like are the things that we've identified that are going to help us be goal-oriented, but also how you want to practice, how you prepare, all those types of things. your offense and defensive philosophies, your special teams philosophy. But the number one thing I think to anything about changing a culture is building and establishing relationships. I keep referencing Coach Wooden, but, he would always say, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think it's about letting these guys know how much you care about them, and they feel that by the way that you approach it day in and day out. And I think then the culture will become that as a result of that consistency that will compound over time.
Thank you, Coach. Fantastic. Appreciate you.
You got it.
Jacob, go win Coach of the Year in your first season like Sean McVay did with the Rams, okay? Daryl Thomas is our next guest, and then Ronald Coltrus, stand by. You'll be coming up.
Coach McVay, Daryl Thomas, head coach at Upland High School in Upland, California. I'm happy to hear you say about your leadership council. I got a couple questions about that. We took advantage of the pandemic as well, and we established our leadership council. We met 6 or 7 times. One question is, how often do you meet? And also, how do you ensure that your message is being disseminated throughout your team?
Yeah, so we met once a week. So I would meet with those guys every Thursday. And really, Daryl, what I thought was the most important thing is being able to listen to those guys. So often we're in positions that we're dictating decisions, but really opening up and giving them an opportunity to share their thoughts. If they had any suggestions, for how we're practicing or what we're trying to do, I was getting a lot of feedback with how did they feel like the structure of our meetings was, and were we able to get the message to our players in the most digestible way. But, like something that they decided on, they talked about wanting to really be connected. Like Cooper Kupp mentioned with Aaron Donald, those meetings were one of the first times that they really got a chance to talk at length. So then our players came up with the idea that typically in the locker rooms, you got the offensive guys, defensive guys, and they're usually kind of, in similar spots as their positions. But they thought it would be a good idea to mix offense and defensive guys so that you get exposure to groups of people on the team that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise, just based on the flow of the day, where the receivers are always spending time together, as are the offensive linemen, but being able to mix that up. As far as just making sure that you're getting your message to the team, I think it's being consistent with what you're communicating. And I also think it's important to make sure that it's getting feedback from them. I think sometimes, and I'm definitely guilty of this as a coach, is we're just transmitting information. I think the goal to really get a good feel, are the players with you? Are they following everything that you're saying? Is forcing that feedback from them as well, where you're asking questions, you're making sure that they understand, and them having to give it back to you is so important, especially right now where we're not able to get on the field. I know for a lot of us, a great opportunity where, hey, where does real coaching take place? On the grass. Well, we can't do that right now. So we've got to communicate at an even better level than we ever have before. And you don't do that unless you're willing to ask questions and then be able to listen to those guys as well.
Coach, I appreciate your answer. Good luck this season.
Thank you. You too.
Appreciate it, Daryl. Ronald Coltrus coming up next, and Noel Padilla, if you want to stand by. We're coming to you after this.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Ronald Coltrus, I'm over at Hawkins High School in South Central. I took over a program a couple years ago that went 0-11, and ever since then, it's like every year I have a new QB, always a senior. My question is, do I look for a young kid to develop him, or just keep taking these one-time seniors to help the program build? Because when I took it over, they were 0-11. We won a game, 4 games. We're building slowly, but we can't find that solid guy at QB. Mm-hmm. What would your opinion be?
I think you really just got to find who's going to be the best guy that gives you an opportunity to win games. And I think ideally you'd say, got a young guy that I can have run the show for the next 3 years, but you might have a senior who's a better player. And I think if that player gives you the best opportunity to win and to do the things that you're trying to get done and accomplish, I think that's really what I would say. But I do think it's important that you're identifying younger players in your program that could potentially take on that role based on just, all right, hey, who are some of these freshmen coming up? What are some of the 7th and 8th grade players looking like? And how can we put them in a situation, or how can I make sure that they're getting exposure to some coaches that are very similar to how we want to operate, that then when this guy becomes a freshman, a sophomore, maybe it's a junior, they're potentially in competition for running the show for you as a quarterback.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate that.
You got it.
Good stuff, Ronald. And Coach Padilla, why don't you come on in, and then David Castro will give you the heads up that you'll be after Noel.
Hi, first of all, I hope all coaches are finding themselves healthy and their families as well. Coach, my name is Noah Padilla. I'm the head coach at Bell High School, located here in the Southeast region. My question is, obviously, we know we're going through this pandemic, whatnot. Any suggestions on preparations to practice not just our football stuff, but also to make sure that we're still maintaining our rules and regulations when it comes to social distancing? Because I know it's going to be hard for us as coaches to do it with 40, 50 kids. I'm sure you're going to find yourself in a tough situation as well. Just any recommendations that has been pointed to you on what you can do that we can get a little feedback on.
Yeah, it's funny that you asked that. I went over to our facilities for the first time today, and it's a little mind-numbing on some of the things that they're going to ask us to do. And I don't have the right answer. I think what you want to try to do is practice, smart standard operating procedures with the hygiene, encouraging guys, to make sure you're washing your hands, all those things that I think we would do anyways. What I'm having the most difficult time, understanding is, all right, so we're going to social distance, but our game represents everything but that. I mean, you're talking about offensive and defensive linemen colliding every single snap. Every play is really completed based on somebody being tackled to the ground. And so it just doesn't really make sense to me. I said this earlier. It's hard for me to understand. I think we got to be smart with limiting the exposures and practicing the right things, but we still are going to play football. And one of the things that I'm really working through, and I think probably some of the standards will change a month and a half from now when we're due to report for camp, is, okay, how do we educate our players on these safe and smart practices while also not inhibiting their ability to feel like I can go out and compete and still play football? And that's something that I'm working through. I know I wish I had a better answer for you, but I think we're all kind of navigating through this, and it'll be something that we've just got to have the agility and the flexibility to adjust on the fly. And because I think a lot of people don't really know, that's why this has been so crazy, is I think there's just such an unknown behind the ways that it's spread and what the consequences are.
Thanks a lot, Coach.
Thank you, Coach Padilla. I just want to acknowledge Gerald, Patrick, Dan, Darren, LC. We've got you all. We see your hands. We have you in queue. We're going to go to David Castro next, and then I'll just interject a couple of written questions from our Q&A from coaches who aren't able to join us via audio. So we'll do that after we bring in Coach Castro. Go ahead, David.
Hey, coaches, I hope you can hear me.
Yep.
Okay, Coach, I have a two-part question. First of all, I want to thank you guys because this is a great help. Also, we received some gear from you guys last year for Bell High School. So I have a two-part question. My first question is, what do you think is the best and essential drill for offensive linemen to practice on run blocking? My follow-up question is, what do you think is a fundamental drill for the offense that can be placed into practice that can help diversions such as motions, distractions, anything that can deceive the defense to help you better progress the run?
Yeah. Well, I would say that the first part of your question, it's all right, what type of run are you activating? If it's an outside zone play, well, let's take these blocks that are most likely to occur. That's a reach block if you're on the front side. It could be a combination block. So how can I create a drill that really gets them to do what they're going to do on these given plays? And really that's where, you having a pad and really being able to have these guys fit and uncoil and be able to get their hips through on contact. But it's when I can isolate individual parts of that play, that's really what drill work allows you to really get some good isolation when you play with 22 guys on every single snap. But all right, if I'm a right guard and I'm working on reaching a 3 technique on an outside zone, let me see how I can isolate that block, but then also have a pad where it gets somebody a chance for them to fit up on a shield run their feet through contact, get their head across that body. So that would be the first thing with the drill. And then as far as like individual just timing with regards to motions, things like that, we have a period that we call TTO. It's just team takeoff, and we're running plays on air. And that's where it really gives you a great opportunity to get the timing, the intricacies of some things down. And those would be the two drills that I would suggest.
Thank you, Coach.
Have a great season, David. And again, Gerald, Patrick, stand by. You're coming up next. Let me get in one, maybe two written questions from our Q&A. Garrett Sand from Temecula Valley High School is stuck at work listening, but can't pop on the microphone. So, Sean, he'd love to hear your special teams philosophy and maybe some thoughts on former special teams coach John Fossil and his attributes.
Yeah. So, philosophically, it's really in each phase of special teams how you want to operate. And John Fossil's been one of the best special teams coordinators in the league for a long time. I was able to learn so much from him. I think our philosophy overall, whether it's offense, defense, special teams, we want to be an aggressive outfit where we're always applying pressure to the teams that we're playing while being smart and not reckless. And so the thing that I would say, the most important phase of special teams outside of, your field goal operation, I would say, is your punt team. And, it's the one play in football where you basically start on offense and then you end up transitioning to defense. And so you got to be able to protect, you got to be able to get it off, but we'll be aggressive overall with our special teams philosophy, but we want to be smart and fundamentally sound. And those are things that I think you would be consistent. The thing that's so different about special teams, and when we ended up, when Coach Fossil left to go to the Cowboys, we interviewed a couple different coaches, and it's amazing. And I'd be interested from your guys' perspective, how different special teams play is at the collegiate level compared to the professional level, just based on formations and what's legal, what's not. I remember I spoke with Iowa special teams coordinator, Alabama special teams coordinator, and watching their punt operation compared to what the normal NFL rules entail is such a different phase. But it's something that I've really gotten a chance to learn a lot more about. And John Bonamego, who's been a really successful special teams coordinator in this league, was with the Lions last year. We got him, and I know he'll do a great job for us.
All right, let's get one more written question in. Again, Coach Butler, thanks for your patience. We'll be with you momentarily. This one from Antoine Sims, who asks, Sean, against an even front, is it better to run inside zone to the 1-tech or the 3-tech, and why?
That's a great question. That's something that we talk about year in and year out. I think really it's probably one of those deals where you're saying, all right, who's my better guard? And I'll go at the right guard or the left guard accordingly. But I can make the case that running at the 3 is where we've had some really good hits, or running at the shade. But I think overall, depending upon how exactly your combination blocking it, we've always felt like being able to run some of those inside zone plays at a 3 technique, a little bit wider, has given us a chance to have some good hits. But we've had success running at the 1, running at the 3 technique, and those are things that we've talked about. I bet you that's a question that we go through as coaches every single year on the cut-ups, and I don't necessarily think there's a right or a wrong answer. I just say, hey, I'd err on the side of probably running at who I think the better offensive lineman is.
All right, so Coach Sand and Coach Sims, thanks for finding us through the Q&A. Let's go back to those hands raised. And you coaches, we really appreciate your enthusiasm here. There's a nice long line, and we'll try and power through as many of these as we can in our second half hour. Coach Butler, as promised, the floor is yours. Go ahead. Let's try Gerald one more time. Gerald, can you hear us, and can we hear you?
Is that Gerald Brown or Gerald Butler?
It was Gerald Butler, but now it's Gerald Brown. Come on in.
How's it going, Coach? Longtime fan, especially love the way that you rally behind the team and get everybody behind you. One of the things I have the biggest concern about is we have a lot of players coming out of this whole pandemic. What do you recommend as far as keeping the morale up? I'm a first-time assistant coach out of Quartz Hill, California, Quartz Hill High School, and one of the biggest concerns that I have is getting to know these players and missing that opportunity to introduce myself to them.
Yeah, I think, just connecting with them as much as you can right now, whether it's through Zoom, whether it's text, phone calls, just doing what you can to try to develop a relationship and a rapport with these guys so that it's not something that has to be done immediately. You can do that right now. And that's what I would see, I think, as the most beneficial thing for us is you being able to get to know these guys ahead of time. Then it'll probably give you a better opportunity to really evaluate the landscape of how guys are handling these difficult times. And everybody's going through it in their own way. But I would just say start connecting, start building those relationships, and whatever the platform is that's easiest to connect with these guys.
Thank you, Coach.
Appreciate you, Coach Brown. And Patrick Commerce, you're up next. Feel free to open up your mic and give Coach McVay your question.
All right, thanks. Hi, Coach. Patrick Commerce, head coach at Hollywood High School here. Great to be on with you. My question is actually less related to Chalk Talk and more related to community outreach, so apologies if I'm going outside of the scope of this meeting. But I think it's the most relevant to our program. Hollywood High School is moving from a varsity-only league to from a varsity and JV league to a varsity-only no JV league, and I think that's largely due to the lack of youth football in our area, and I think it's not only affecting the quality of football being played, but also obviously hurting the high school students' experience. And I was wondering if the Rams have any community outreach to promote youth football.
Yeah, Molly Higgins and Jonathan Franklin's on this call. Jonathan, if you're on here, you'd probably be better equipped to answer the question, but I know he's given me an opportunity to get set up with a bunch of different organizations to try to use the platform in a powerful way. Jonathan, are you on here?
Yes, I am. Hey, Coach, how's it going? Appreciate you asking that question.
Sure, thank you.
Definitely our goal is to be a resource, as you all, each of you on this call are growing the game of football and in the communities day in and day out, right? Pouring into our youth. We have many opportunities and we can follow up a call, post this, and really talk about how the Rams can engage your school, your community, and find out how we can be a resource for your football team moving forward.
That would be amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I'll follow up with the email post this call. Appreciate you joining.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right now.
Jonathan.
And Dan Davidson, we're coming to you next. Jonathan gave me this email address, footballcamps@rams.nfl.com, that I was going to mention at the end of our session here. If you have ideas or ways the Rams can support your school, to go ahead and email footballcamps@rams.nfl.com. So in case you have to get out of here before the top of the hour, I wanted to make sure we gave that out. And let's see if Dan Davidson is ready now to chat with Sean McVay.
Yes, I am. Coach McVay, thank you for doing this. Great to see you giving back like you always do. More of a strategic type of question. With your quarterbacks, you do a lot more of your pre-snap read. Do you allow them to establish movement compared to actually watching the play develop and trust their, the touchdown, first down, check down stuff? How do you go about that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I would say this. What we try to do is have, for the most part, most of our reads entail kind of the pure progression where I'm starting here and I'm kind of just sweeping across the board. And I think that enables Jared and our quarterbacks to really be able to play through the down quickly. But you got to have a starting point. I think we definitely have some plays where you're saying, okay, it's a cover 2 defense, so I'm going to work the right, the 2-man combination on my right, and I'll work the 2-man combination on my left if it's a single high structure. We do have some coverage reads, but for the most part, we try to establish kind of these all-purpose pure progression plays, and then the quarterbacks are then taught to exhaust their progressions or get off one faster based on wherever that area is that we're trying to get to, if there's a defender there. And I think that's the easiest way. Like, this is something that's been a huge influence on me. My grandfather's history with the 49ers, Bill Walsh used to always say, the quarterback position is the most difficult job in all of sports. So our job as coaches is how can we try to make the most difficult position, all right, as easy as possible. And that's where everything that we do starts with seeing it through the lens of the quarterback. And I think today, especially, defensive coaches are so good. There's so many intricacies and so many different coverage contours that you're getting. I think you got to be consistent in what you're asking your quarterbacks to do. And we always try to tell our guys, the goal for when you're playing quarterback is you got to be able to understand the play. You got to understand the intent, the mechanics, and then be able to solve those potential problems that can arise within that play. And that's why, for the most part, I know it's kind of long-winded, we try to have a pure progression, kind of an across-the-board mindset and mentality on the majority of our drop-back plays.
Appreciate it. Thanks, sir.
You got it.
Have a great season, Coach Davidson. Thank you for being here. Darren, you are coming up. And then on deck, we have LC. So thanks for hanging with us. And Darren, the floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Darren Spence, and I'm the head football coach at Azusa High School. And one of the things that I've noticed, Coach, and once again, thank you very much for doing this for us. One of the things I've noticed the last couple of years when you guys have been really successful offensively, it's when you've run the ball and you've thrown great play action passes. So can you go through your thought process of deciding, what play action passes you're going to run against a certain defense? Is it based on the coverage? Is it based on personnel? How do you go through that thought process, Coach?
Yeah, so that's one of the big things. If you said offensively, what's one of your key philosophies that you want to try to operate with? We want to marry the run and the pass. And we want to make our core runs and the play actions look exactly the same, where you can put that defense in conflict, because everything defensively is reactionary. So, I don't know if it's a run, I don't know if it's a pass quite yet, because we try to marry it. And, our main run concepts, our foundation starts with the outside zone. So what we try to do is say, all right, if we're going to run the outside zone as our lead dog concept, you've seen Gurley over the years have an unbelievable amount of success. Well, let's make sure that we have play actions that look exactly like that. Let's make sure our bootleg game looks exactly like that. And then we also have screens off of that. So it's really marrying the run and the pass, but specifically the run game with those three elements of the pass being play pass, all right, your movement game where your bootlegs, your keepers, all right, and then the third part would be our screen game. And that's a huge part of our philosophy. And then, week in and week out, just like I know you guys all game plan, there are certain front structures or defenses that you might like one thing better than the other, but you always want to try to have those married up so you can create that conflict and that little bit of hesitation that makes a difference in, successful plays or not in a lot of instances.
Thank you.
All right, good stuff, Darren. LC lowered his hand. So LC, we'll give you a chance if you still do want to pose a question. Feel free. If it's already been asked and answered, no worry. We'll move to Aaron Gideon next. So Aaron, stand by and let's see if LC still wants to jump on. Go ahead if you do.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yes. Surprise, I'm a female coach out of Western in Anaheim, California. Thanks so much. This is a great opportunity. Funny enough, a lot of the questions have already been asked about special teams and inside runs and everything like that. So to circle back to adversity, what would you say would be your biggest advice for coaches wanting to go to the next level, especially like female coaches in football like myself?
Yeah, I think just really continuing to learn, make connections. One of the things, LC, that I've been so blessed with that I don't run away from, and it's almost embarrassing, is how lucky I've been to get the opportunities I've had as a result of, a great reputation that my grandfather was able to establish. But it's continuing to use these opportunities to get to know other coaches, continue to pour into one another, learn as much as we can about the game so that whenever that opportunity does arise, you're ready because of the preparation that you've committed to really perfecting your craft and really learning and owning, as much as you can about the game and how to really just be the best coach, but also understanding that, hey, a coach is really a teacher, and how can I continue to surround myself with people that allow me to get better and allow me to continue to grow.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And as promised, Aaron Gideon, you're next. Coach Gideon, go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Aaron Gideon from Taft High School, Woodland Hills. Just want to thank the Rams, Jonathan, and Coach McVay for giving us this platform to be able to interact with you. And my question was, how do you approach preparing all players for game performance when the stakes are so high at your level, especially in light of the fact that today, I would say the NFL roster sizes are very similar to high school roster sizes, with also making sure that you're doing that safely. So I appreciate you answering that for us.
Yeah, so I think really, that's where it's so valuable. This is something that I kind of mentioned Doc Rivers earlier. One of the things that we've talked about a lot, and that he's really always intrigued with football, is the amount of players that we have compared to what he does. And what I would say is that's where there's got to be a lot of trust in your assistant coaches as well, to make sure that, hey, you're dispersing your staff in a way that you're not going to be able to touch all 90 guys. Now, you want to make sure that you have a relationship with them, but I think that's where it's so important for us as leaders to be connected with, those key members of your coaching staff, those key members on your team, because then your relationship and your feel for those guys will then have a trickle-down effect where those people influence and affect the other guys that we just don't have enough time in the day to really be able to touch all 90 guys or however many it is in the way that maybe I'm going to spend a lot more time just naturally with a Jared Goff or with an Aaron Donald than I will with some of these undrafted guys. That doesn't make them any less important, but that's where it's important to be consistent and have a good pulse on the entirety of your team. And I think that's really by establishing clear boundaries and guidelines with your key players and your coaching staff, so that now we can be consistent in how we're operating day in and day out.
Thank you, Coach.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you, Aaron. And Joe Girardo, sorry to give you a heads up that you would be on deck, but if you're prepared and ready to roll, I'm sure Jonathan will have your mic open, and feel free to step in.
How you doing, Coach? Joe Girardo, Rim of the World High School. I have a question in regards to, we're a I-back team. We run the ball. We don't throw the ball very often, just a little play action here and there. And I'm curious to know your thoughts on the 7-on-7 culture here in Southern California, and if it's worth our time, participating in those activities, or just doing what we do, which is focus on installs, weights, and conditioning in the spring.
Yeah, I think there is merit to it, because eventually, even if you want to be an I formation team on those early downs, third downs do come up where you got to be able to probably get in the shotgun, spread people out a little bit, and throw it. And those end up being crucial downs. A lot of points are at stake potentially. So, and I think as valuable as anything is just the guys connected. And in the passing leagues, I think, you want to make sure, and really you would be better equipped to answer it than me, but I do think there's enough opportunities and things that come up within the framework of a game just based on the 65 to 70 snaps you have offensively, where you will need to throw the football to win some games. And that's where I think it does benefit, but not getting too far away from, hey, this is a part of who we want to be offensively. This isn't its entirety. So being able to kind of say, all right, I think there's value to it, but still being able to have the installs and some of the stuff that you talked about, and making sure that there's a good distribution of how you want to allocate the time accordingly.
Thanks, Coach.
You got it.
All right, here's our due-up lineup in our final, 10-15 minutes. Thomas Barnes, and then Daniel Yu and Tyrone Terrell. That's kind of what we have lined up. So Thomas, Coach Barnes, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Hey, yeah, Coach, how you doing? This is Coach Barnes, offense coordinator over Santa Monica High School. I had a question. It's not really, I guess, related to football, but just in the relationships with the players and regarding, have you talked to your team, or what have you guys talked about the social unrest in the community and the things that are going on in the world today?
Yeah, absolutely, Thomas. We've had a lot of great discussions. I've had an opportunity, really, I think the most important thing, especially for me during these times, has been listening to learn. That's the big thing that I've, and then being willing to ask those questions and let everybody kind of come and work through it and try to heal and do that on their own timing. Certain guys that I've gotten to talk to are very willing to share. They want to talk about it, and others you kind of got to let them go at their own pace. And there's not a one size fits all, but I think asking the questions to truly have that empathy, that understanding, especially for me too, where I told our guys when we had a team meeting, I said, I've never been a victim of racial profiling, but I have been raised to know right from wrong and to love people. And I think the beauty of what our game entails is that those prejudice, those stereotypes that have been going on for far too long in our society and our country are really broken down in sports, because you get to come together with a bunch of different people from a bunch of different backgrounds, and you love one another, and you're just working towards a common goal. And that's what's beautiful about sports. But we've got to I think we're continuing to find out too, hey, how can I understand each person by asking the right questions? And then we're continuing to still formulate plans of our approach plan so that we can truly make a difference with the Rams organization. And I do believe that change is in store, and there's been a lot of positive that has come from, such a negative thing, especially in light of some of the other things that have occurred in our society just over the course of time.
Cool, Coach. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, Coach Barnes, have a good rest of your evening. Daniel, I hope I'm going to give this a shot. Urbanos, maybe. Feel free to correct me and then pose your question to Sean McVay. Daniel will give you another second or two in case you want to get lined up.
Can you hear me, Coach?
There it is.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Gotcha.
Great. Couldn't hear anything.
How about now, Daniel? You got us? All right, why don't we jump ahead to Tyrone Terrell, and Daniel will give it another shot here before the top of the hour, if that's okay. So, Coach Terrell, you're up next.
Hello.
Gotcha.
Hi, my name is Tyrone. I'm a high schooler, actually, looking into coaching, and I wanted to know if the Rams have an intern program for high school kids that want to get into coaching.
We don't have an intern program for kids, but what we do have is we have an opportunity. We definitely have a lot of internships and fellowship programs in a bunch of different arenas. We just finished up with a lot of guys. We had 12 coaches that were a part of our fellowship program that I actually met with this morning and spoke with for a while. But there are opportunities to get into coaching. And I would just say that's not exclusive to just high school kids, but really just anybody that wants to get on that career path and that trajectory to becoming a coach.
Okay. Can you let me know where to look for that?
I can have I'll have Jonathan, if you're still on here, we'll be able to get Tyrone and get him some information with some of those opportunities that'll be coming up over the next year.
Absolutely. Tyrone, I'll follow up with you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's see if Daniel O. Coach O, are you with us? How about Daniel Urbanos? Jonathan, feel free to unmute either one of those if you'd like. And we'll just kind of react accordingly. All right, Sean, in the meantime, how we go to Lucius Davis from Bernstein High School in Hollywood, a first-year DC trying to implement a new scheme during the pandemic over Zoom, of course. How can he keep players engaged and know they're actually retaining the information he's trying to teach in this new defensive scheme?
Yeah, I think forcing the communication. One of the things, I don't know exactly how if you're able to show your film or some of the teaching progressions just to your players, but I think it's forcing that communication, asking questions, making them give back what you've taught them with the natural communication that the cycle of the snap entails, all right? Whether it's front adjustments, coverage rotations, if an offense presents this formation, what's our adjustment to empty? So I think it's just continuously trying to say, how in a remote setting can I put the closest thing to what a normal walkthrough or a practice or a game would entail? And I think that's just forcing the communication. And that's been a big emphasis for us, where we've said for our guys all along, we want to make these meetings engaging, entertaining, and really educational. But we've been able to force that communication, and that's always been a staple of our program. And I don't think there's ever been a time that it's been more important and more of a premium is placed on it, just with the restrictions that we're all operating under right now.
All right, and then let's close with Henry Medina. Coach Medina, if you're with us, you have the honor.
Hi, guys. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Coach Henry Medina from Catella High School. I'm a young wide receivers and defensive backs coach here in Anaheim. And Coach McVay, I just had a question about you're on the lower end of the spectrum in terms of age, and myself as well as a young coach trying to work his way up the ranks. Have you ever? My question is basically, have you ever had a some type of bias in terms of you being a younger coach with your players, and like what kind of how did you deal with that situation? And if not, what kind of advice do you think you would give to a coach of a younger age?
Yeah, you know what? I've never felt like my age has been an issue because, you know, I've read in books, it's, you know, our age is one thing, but the unseen hours where you can accumulate a lot of experience just based on how hard you're working at stuff. And we're all a product of our experiences and the atmospheres and environments we've been placed in. But I think we would all agree that players will respect you if you can help them get better and they know you care about them. And I've always been committed to trying to make sure that I have the answer to their questions, that they can feel how committed we are to helping them reach their highest potential. And then I think the other thing that's really important is if you don't know something, not being afraid to say, you know what, I don't know, but I'm going to get that figured out. Especially like I think about as a head coach, you know, there's this natural assumption that, okay, you got to have the answers to everything. And I've been so fortunate to be around people where you can say, hey, you know what? I don't know that. Let me refer or, you know, defer, I should say, to some of the people on our coaching staff, but just keep accumulating knowledge. The unseen hours end up allowing you to accumulate a lot of experience faster than whatever our age is, but it's how hard you work at it.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate it.
You got it.
Great question to wrap us up there, Henry. And as we do close, on behalf of the LA Rams, I want to thank everyone who joined this conversation. Each of you we know are shaping the lives of your student athletes on a daily basis and preparing the future stars of the game we love. If you enjoyed today, if you have any ideas or ways the Rams can support you and your school, your program, please do email that address I gave out earlier, but we'll repeat a couple times here. It's footballcamps@rams.nfl.com. footballcamps@rams.nfl.com. So thank you again, Coach McVay, for your wisdom, your knowledge, your insight, your time. Is there anything you would like to say in closing?
No, I just think, you know, I think it's such a powerful thing that we get an opportunity to coach. I know that some of the most influential men and really people, women in my life have been people that I've gotten to know, whether it be coaches at the high school, collegiate level, guys that I'm working with. And, you know, I just continue to challenge us to use the platform for the right reasons and really help establish, you know, real relationships where we care about these guys. They know that. And I think it's going to really enable them to be successful in life, whether it's on the football field or not. And we all have a really powerful opportunity to pour into these men the right way. And I just am such a fan of coaching, and I have such respect and admiration for what you guys do. And I've really enjoyed the time today.
All right, for Sean and for Jonathan Franklin, who, as you've seen, has been a driving force behind this afternoon, for Chase Isaacs and David Weingarten and Molly Higgins and so many others in our organization, I'm JB Long. Thank you for joining us. We wish you a safe and rewarding season this fall. Have a great rest of your afternoon.